I thank you for your faithful giving. Amen. We're continuing in our series this week on Direction Determines Destination. I grew up in West Virginia, and I think, trying to make this polite and not sound condescending, because I'm from West Virginia and I don't like some of the things you say about us. But they have phrases. They just have phrases, common wisdom phrases that are very boiled down. Like determination determines the destination. I mean, that's kind of profound, isn't it? But in West Virginia, we would say, what gets your attention gets you. And that's true. Whatever's on, when you wake up in the morning, what's on your mind? What is your attention focused on? Is it debt? Is it getting out of bed? Is it, oh my gosh, I gotta go to work? Whatever gets your attention, it gets you. And it's got you. And it's the same thing that we're talking about on this path, that direction determines destination. If you're driving down the road and you see something in the road coming up ahead, they say to you, don't focus on it, because if you focus on it, you'll probably run over it. Because whatever gets your attention gets you. Have any of you ever heard the word scotoma? The word scotoma is a blind sight. It's something in your life, it's a blind spot. Some of us have cracks in our windshield. Some of us have cracks in our mirrors. And we think, oh, that mirror's ruined. Oh, that windshield is ruined. But do you know what we learn to do? Look around. You just shift over. You stop looking at the crack. And you just ignore it. And it's a scotoma. It's a blind spot. You just don't see what's there. Well, direction is something you don't want to ignore. Because there are things you and I need to focus on to get us to where we want to go. Amen? And that determines your path. I have a theory I'd like to share with you today, and then I have a couple points I want to give to you also. I believe that one of the most difficult things in life, get ready, is to know what you don't know. It's one of the most difficult things in life, is to know what you don't know. And embrace it. One of the hardest things for us to say is, I don't know. We make things up. We act like, well, if I say I don't know, I'll look stupid. Well, no, you could look more stupid by saying something that's wrong. We have a hard time saying and admitting what we don't know. Let me give you a couple examples. When I was a teenager, I grew up in the 70s, which for most of you is like a million years ago. But there was this movement called the Jesus movement. It was the hippie Christians. This Jesus movement, and it started out west in California, and it spread across the nation and actually around the world. And it worked through schools. Back then you were allowed to talk about Jesus in school. And it started working through schools, and people suddenly were not ashamed of their faith. They talked about it openly. How many of you grew up during the Jesus movement? I know there's only a few of us, but you grew up during the Jesus movement, and they would have Bible studies at school. They would have, activities at school. They'd bring in speakers at school. They'd have Christian concerts at school. They'd have them in the city parks. It was everywhere. And, not being the sharpest knife in the drawer, I finally figured out, well, maybe I should look into this Christian thing, since it seems to be kind of popular. And as a teenager, don't we all want to be kind of popular? So I was invited to this Baptist church. I did not grow up in a Christian home. I did not grow up, we showed up for midnight mass every Christmas, because, the Catholics do it right. If you want to have a nice Christmas ceremony, you go to midnight mass. But I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up with great parents and a great sister, but church was not part of our thing. But I started getting all these invitations from people to go to, Bible study, to go to this or to go to that. So I thought, well, maybe I should try this out. So I went with a friend to this thing called BYF. Has anyone ever heard of BYF? It's Baptist Youth Fellowship. Isn't that catchy? Makes you want to go, doesn't it? So I went to this BYF with a friend who invited me to go. And the good news is I got saved at this church, so hallelujah. I'm glad someone asked. So don't be afraid to ask people. So I was sitting there, and the speaker came in, and he was very charismatic, and he was a great guy. He was a college athlete, and he was talking to us. He said, now turn, if you would, in your Bibles to 1 Corinthians, and he gave us the scripture to turn to. And I was smart enough to bring a Bible. I found a Bible. We had like 2 Bibles in our house. One was a family Bible, which was never opened, and it was so big you couldn't pick it up. So I didn't take that one. But so I found a Bible, and I took it with me. So they said, turn to 1 Corinthians and whatever the chapter was. So, I started flipping through it. It took me about 10 minutes to find it. And so we're sitting there, and they're doing this teaching, and I'm thinking, this is not what I'm reading. And I sat there, and I listened, and I listened, and I listened. And finally, there was this girl sitting next to me who was one of the reasons I was at the meeting. I thought, well, does Julie go there? And so I went to the meeting. So she's sitting there next to me, and I felt kind of like an idiot because I'm trying to act like I know where I'm turning to. And I sat there, and then finally I leaned over to her, and I said, I'm not reading when he's reading. And she said, well, that's because you're in 1 Chronicles, not 1 Corinthians. And all of us, I believe, have felt that before in church, don't you? What do we say? If you would, please turn to the 3rd chapter of Habakkuk. And how many of you just whip right to it? You don't know where it is. So, and rather than look over to someone, and all of us have different pages or different texts in our iPads or whatever we're using. But it was so hard for me to ask, where is that? Why? Because it's hard to admit when you don't know. It's embarrassing for us to admit what we don't know. So we fake it. Well, you know what? As a teenage boy at a BYF meeting, sitting next to Julie, my dream girl, who I have no idea, I think it's the last time I saw her. It wasn't much of a dream. But I sat there and I thought, I'm not getting anything out of this because I'm not willing to admit what I don't know. Well, we sit in church sometimes. We sit in our jobs sometimes. We sit in our families sometimes. We sit with our friends sometimes. And we act like we know things we don't know. Amen? We don't know them. And we're not comfortable enough to say, I don't know. I really have no idea what this is. I remember later on when I really started getting into the Bible, people started saying, you know what, if you would just look at the front of the Bible, there's like there's a table of contents. It tells you what pages they're on. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that with me. Now I know that. And then as I started studying the Bible, I thought, you know what, there are certain words in the Bible that I really don't know what they mean, like Shekinah, and things that they just didn't know what they meant. And I thought, I'm going to start writing these words down and put out somewhere where they're located in the Bible. And so I started making this little diary of these words in the Bible and what page they were on. And I thought, this is amazing. I probably could become famous doing this. And then a buddy of mine said, well, in 1897 there was this guy named Strong who wrote this thing called Strong's Concordance. And it's about this thick, and it has every word, almost every word that's in the Bible. And if you turn to it, it'll tell you what page it's on and what it actually means. And I thought, wow, it's kind of embarrassing. Because I wasn't willing to admit what I didn't know. One of the first things you and I have got to do is to begin to understand it's okay to know what you don't know. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say to someone, I don't know. When I was right out of college, actually right out of grad school, I should have known better. I was living in Annapolis, and I was getting ready to, I needed to do some improvements on my car. My car needed some work done on it. And there was this place right down from the church that I drove by every day, and it said same-day loans. And I thought, that's awesome. Same-day loans. So, I walked in, and I said, tell me about these same-day loans. And the guy said, well, I need your driver's license. And so I gave my driver's license, I got Social Security number, and he pumped it in. He said, how much do you need? And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. He's just going to give me money same day. And I got like $2,500. I signed the papers, and it was cool. He gave me a check. I went to the bank, I deposited it, I went and got my car fixed, and then the bill came. It was a 1-year loan, and the bill came, and it was enormous. So I was talking to a friend who knew a little bit about finances, and I said, I got this same-day loan. He said, you didn't go to that same-day loan place right there on Forest Drive, did you? And I said, yeah. He said, what's your interest rate? I don't know. I didn't ask. It never crossed the mind of a 22-year-old who just wanted money on the same day. And it was 32%. And no buyouts. You could not, there was a penalty if you paid it off early. So for 12 months, I paid 32% interest on a $2,500 loan. It ended up being, well, you could do the math. It was a lot of money because I was not willing to admit what I don't know. We do that sometimes with investments, don't we? We don't admit what we don't know. We get something in the mail and it says, easy payoffs. There is nothing easy about payoffs. There's nothing easy about it. We get things you have been pre-approved. Like, wow, this must be God. I needed money. And now it just came in the mail and it says, I'm pre-approved. And we do things investment-wise, and sometimes we need to talk to people who know a little bit more about investments. Now, I know a whole lot more about investments now, and I learned the hard way as a 22 or 23-year-old kid in Annapolis who got a same-day loan. Anybody ever been there? I bet I'll be good company. Because sometimes our ignorance is not bliss. Our ignorance is dangerous. Sometimes when we do it as parents, I didn't realize how much I didn't know about being a parent until our child was born. I thought I knew all about being a parent until I was a parent. And the best thing you can do is talk to another parent. But sometimes we don't want to admit that. We don't want to say, I really don't know how to change a diaper. I really don't know how to raise a child. I really don't know how to sleep when this thing won't stop screaming at night. I really don't know. Because we want to act like we know, don't we? We want to always act like I'm going to be a perfect father, I'm going to be a perfect husband, I'm going to be this, that, and the other. And the truth is, down deep inside, we need to know what we don't know, or we'll never get to the destination God has for us. So far during the series, we've learned about mid-course corrections. Maureen's talked to us about mid-course corrections. We've learned about the most common mistakes in determining what fork to take is trusting in our hearts. Sometimes we trust in our hearts and not the wisdom of others, and the Bible clearly says that the heart is the most deceitful thing in us sometimes. We've learned that one of the easiest ways to make a great decision is to ask ourselves the question, what story do I want to tell about this part of my life years from now? And today I want to help you learn, just with a few important points, I want to help you understand the essential lesson for success along the path that you and hopefully God has for you. The lesson has to do with figuring out what we don't know. How do you do that? How do you discover what you don't know? Fortunately, Solomon told us in Proverbs 15:22, if you want to turn there, or I'll read it for you. In Proverbs 15:22, he was one of the wisest men who ever lived. And he says to us, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Plans fail for lack of counsel, input, advice. But with many advisors they succeed. So how can you know what you don't know? How can you and I know and admit what we don't know? Here are some points. We need to seek advisors, people who will speak into our lives. Why don't we do that? Why is it so hard for us to ask for help? Why is it so hard for us to turn to people and say, I really don't know what to do with this? Do you know that most lottery winners who win multi-millions of dollars end up bankrupt within 10 years? Why? That's so much money. Because they didn't talk to anybody about what to do with all that money. So you have all this blessing and all this favor and all this wealth. And next thing you know, you're living in a van down by the river. And it's like, how did this happen? It's because they didn't know what they weren't willing to admit that they didn't know what they didn't know. Instead of going to someone, pro athletes, same thing. Many pro athletes, they sign these multi-million-dollar deals, and the next thing you know, they're working, at Hardee's 10 years later, or they're on the streets. It's like, how does this happen? Because they didn't seek wise counsel from others. Number one, these are some of the reasons we don't do this. Number one, we think we already know what's best. We just think we already know. And do you know what that's called? It's called ignorance. It's just ignorance. Let's just boil it down. That's ignorant. If you don't know, if you're the only person who thinks they know what's going on, believe me, if you're about to become a new parent, look for people pushing strollers. Look for people with screamers on their shoulder. Look for people with babies. Go to the park. Don't look like a creep or a stalker, but go up to people and say, I see you're a new parent. This is great. We're expecting our first in 3 months. Could you give me some advice? But we don't do that, do we? We don't think to seek the advice, and that's ignorant. That's dumb. Don't do that, okay? Secondly, it feels better to have people think we know what we're doing than to let them know we don't have a clue. What would you call that? The Bible calls it pride. And the Bible says pride goes before a fall. Sometimes when you act like you know what you're doing and you really don't, just like, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. I'm just going to bluff this. Well, the truth is, you're prideful. You're just proud. You're not only ignorant, you're proud, and you don't want to say, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Could you help me? Could you throw me a bone? Could you give me some advice? And the third reason we don't ask sometimes is it's too much work to figure out how to get advice. It's just like, well, I'll just watch TV. I'll just watch YouTube. This is too difficult to figure out how to get advice. And that's not ignorant, and that's not proud. That's just lazy. It's just lazy. The Bible calls it slothfulness. Slothfulness is a biblical word for you're just lazy. You're not willing to do the work. I don't know about you, but I want a good life, don't you? I want a happy life, don't you? I want a life of fulfillment, don't you? I want a life of success, don't you? Well, why don't we ask people who are happy? Why don't we ask people who are successful? Why don't we ask people who are wealthy? Why don't we ask people who are successful parents? Why? We're either ignorant, proud, or lazy. So, word of advice. Don't be ignorant, don't be proud, and don't be lazy. Pastor Andy Stanley, he's the son of Charles Stanley from Atlanta. He wrote this. He said, I am constantly amazed at how resistant folks are to take their cues from people who are where they want to be. How resistant we are. We see someone who's doing what we want to do, and we're resistant to ask them. We're resistant to say, how did you get there? But I'm even more amazed at how quick the average person is to borrow a page or two from someone who's never been where he wants to be. How about the parents who parent like their parents parented and wonder why their kids are turning out to be the same way they did? And then there are the couples who treat each other the same way their moms and dads treated each other and wonder why they are just as unhappy as their parents were. These are the folks who have a good idea of where they want to be, but are content to follow the map used by folks who have never been there. We do it so often. We follow people who have never been to where we want to go because it's easy. It's all we've ever seen. This happens all the time among my friends, he says. The great thing about having friends who share your season of life is that you have so much in common. But the downside is that they aren't much further along down the road than you are. Friends are great for friendship. They aren't always great for advice giving. And often it is their advice that gets us into trouble. It's the assumptions we make based on what we observe about our friends. These assumptions become a map we inadvertently follow. I call this phenomenon the herd assumption. The herd assumption happens when you assume that since everybody else you know is doing something the same way, it must be all right. If everybody you know is mortgaged to the hilt, driving 2 leased vehicles, and applying for a home equity line of credit, then it can't be all that bad. The problem, of course, is that everybody is headed in a similar destination at which no one has yet arrived. It feels safe, but it is often very wrong. But it's not safe. And by the time it becomes obvious that each of these 3 directions leads us to an undesirable destination, it's usually way too late, and you're buried. Taking your cues from people who share your season in life is equivalent to asking and following the direction of someone who has never been where you want to go. It's a danger sign. If I had a warning sign to throw up, don't try to be like your friends, unless your friends have accomplished what you desire to accomplish. I mean, that's good advice. If not, you're just in the herd. You're just following. Sheep are not the brightest animals on the planet. They are followers. They have a herd mentality. Dogs can manage sheep. I mean, when a sheep starts to go that way, the rest of them follow. Why? Because he went that way. Well, don't be a sheep. Don't be a lemming. Don't do what everyone else is doing it just because everyone else is doing it, unless they have gotten somewhere where you desire to go. Those are the people. And they're not everywhere. But you know what? We're surrounded by comfort. Friends are comfortable. I wish I had more friends. I mean, friends make you feel safe. Friends make you feel accepted. But not always will friends help you get to where you want to go. That's why they're your friends. That's why you're their friends. It's because you have so much in common. And all of a sudden, someone has the audacity to say, you know, I was thinking, I would like to do this. And everyone's like, what? Well, I've never heard of that before. How are you going to do that? I don't know. I'm going to find someone who has done that. And I love my friends. But most of my friends are where I am. They're just where I want to be. And that's why they're my friends. But if there's someplace else I want to go, it doesn't mean I have to give up my friends. It just means that they're probably not the best people to ask for advice or counsel. Or they would have already done it. Now, hopefully, if I'm able to accomplish something that I believe God wants me to do, I can share it with my friends. You know? But just be careful. Just be careful that just because your friends are doing it, you should be doing it. Well, that's fine. If that's what you believe you're called to do. Amen? One of the things I've never read in the Bible is that I have been called to be liked. And it's important that you're kind, it's important that you're loving, it's important that you're fair, it's important that you're honest, and all those things are important. But if you always have to be liked, you'll never be able to lead. You'll never be able to go beyond. That's one of the hardest things I think it is for a parent. You want your kids to like you, don't you? Man, it's hard to raise children if you're not willing to be unliked. Well, that's not fair! I'm sorry. Go to your room. I hate you! Well, we'll deal with that later. But I know I want to be your parent more than I want to be your friend. And if we always want to be liked, we'll never be able to go to the destination that God's called us to be. Sometimes you just need to say, you know what? I want you all to like me, but I want something more. I want something different. I want to do something that I've never done before. Anybody with me? And they're all like, oh, we're pretty cool. this is okay. We all go to the same restaurant, we all go to the same club, we all eat the same food, we all go to the same parks. It's like, that's awesome and that's comfortable, but is that where God called you to be? Maybe He has something else in mind for you. You may never find it from your friends. So here's the secret. I'm going to do it very briefly because we're out of time. The secret to getting good counsel. Number one, knowing that you will always need it. Write it down. You will always need good counsel. Period. Not necessarily people who agree with you. You will always need good counsel. No one gets to the place where he no longer needs to be without counsel. If I want to go someplace I've never been before, I have to find someone who's been there or someone who is there. If I ask people who want to go too, all they can say is, yeah, I want to go too. I'm like, well, how do we do this? How do we get there? Well, let's talk to someone who's there or someone who's been there and ask for their advice. Well, that'll make me look stupid. Well, that's proud. Well, I think I can do it on my own. Well, that's ignorant. See, we fall back into these things. Pride, ignorance, slothfulness. Well, that's too hard. You're lazy. Always know you need advice. I need counsel. I need advice. And so do you. Always know that you need it. One of the things that I've learned from my wife, and there are thousands, but one of the things that she does, whenever you go to a restaurant and you start perusing through the menu and you're looking at all this stuff, every time we go to a restaurant, almost every time we go to a restaurant, my wife, who has been in the food industry before, and as a parent, you never leave the food industry, she will almost always ask the waiter, there's two ways to ask this question. If you say, what's good?
Everything's good.
Everything's good. Because that's their job. What's good? Well, you know what? This chicken is really good, and this seafood is fabulous today. We have a ribeye special tonight. We have this and we have this. And then she'll go, what do you eat here? Oh, I always get ribs. Oh, I always get the chicken carne. See, if you ask them what they eat, because they get a discount, they can get whatever they want. They may be eating for free, so you know they're going to eat what's best. But if you say, what's good here, their job is to pretty much represent the whole menu. And it's like, you just told me 12 things. That was no help. But she'll say, what do you eat here? Almost immediately they'll say, oh, boom. So, ask someone for counsel. Ask someone who knows what is good there. The second thing is, asking more than one person's advice. Proverbs 11:14 says, for lack of guidance, a nation falls. But many advisors make victory sure. Lack of guidance. Notice the word Solomon inserts here in Proverbs. Many, not one, many will fall for lack of guidance. Here's something that's going to sound really obvious to you, but most and really important decisions in your life seem important to you. They really seem important to you, but they're not always important to other people. They're important to you, but they're not always important to other people. Proverbs 11:14, many advisors make the victory certain. A little over 20 years ago, Maureen and I, we'd just been married. We had Max and Lucy at the time, and we were in a wonderful place, living close to family, in a very successful, comfortable church. Had about 3,000 members, and life was great. And then God said, I got something else for you. It's kind of what Lisa and William are going through right now. It's like, why would you leave? I mean, many of you probably thought, why would you leave? Well, sometimes God says, thank you, you've done your job, I got something else for you. And we say, well, I don't want to do this. It's like, oh, it's about you, I guess. I thought you wanted to represent me, it's about you. And so we started privately talking about, well, what do we think God wants us to do? We're comfortable, we own homes in this area, we have family in this area, we have a good job, we're very comfortable. And doesn't that all sound like success? Doesn't necessarily mean where God wants you to be, your destination, but it was where I was happy to be. And so we started prayed about it, talked about it, and we knew that it was time for us to do something different. Well, the problem was we asked the wrong people what we should do. I mean, first I talked to my superiors, and they basically said, do you need more money? Is there sin in your life that we need to know about? And I mean, they're asking all these questions that had nothing to do about where I wanted to go. They were thinking, we want to keep you here. We don't want you to leave. This is our... See, they had an agenda, and it wasn't mine. I asked the wrong people for advice. And I said, well, no, I don't need more money. You bless us financially. We're very comfortable. And the only sin in my life is that I should have done this a year ago. And so no. So then we started talking to our best friends, who are still our friends to this day, and I adore them. So we started talking to them, and we came up with a plan to buy property. There was a Catholic Montessori, the Sales Heights, that was closing, and it was just this amazing piece of property. And we started talking, and they said, why don't we buy that? And we started talking about this. We had all these doctors and lawyers and good friends of ours. They said, we can start offering free health care, we can start offering free dentistry, we can start offering financial counseling, we can start offering parental counseling. And it sounded great. It's like, this is amazing. So we got a nonprofit set, we got everything, all the paperwork taken care of, had everything done. I went down and met with the governor, and we were going to dedicate the property. And then all of a sudden, we realized this isn't God. This is not God. It's a good idea, but it wasn't a God idea. Because why? It was what we and our friends wanted to do. It had nothing to do with what God wanted us to do. And that was hard. It was hard to sit down with our friends and say, we really don't think this is what God's calling us to do. We didn't want to stay in the same town because we thought it would hurt the church we were leaving and might split it. There were all kinds of reasons not to do it, but boy, there was a good reason to do it. It was comfortable. And we have all our friends in agreement. And then finally, we had the audacity to say, okay, God, what do you want us to do? And we started seeking the counsel of other people. I met with executive directors in the convention. I started talking to people, and we started looking at different churches in California and Arizona and New York and Chicago and all over the place. And we kept looking and kept looking and kept looking. And because we thought we knew what we wanted. And they said, well, and then one day I went out to lunch with one of the directors of the Baptist Convention. And he was kind of angry with me. And he said, you have interviewed at 6 churches. I'm getting tired of putting your name out there. You make me look bad. Because it was all about him. I thought it was about me. And I said, well, all I can tell you is, he says, they're offering you good salaries, they're offering you good benefits, I said, I know, but it's just not what I think God's calling me to do. And he had the audacity to ask me this question. What do you want to do? Don't be afraid to tell people what you want to do. Where do you want to go? Quit whining. Quit complaining. What do you want to do? And he was the first person to ever ask me that. Everyone told me what they wanted me to do. No one ever asked me what I thought God wanted us to do. And I said, well, I was so tired of tradition. I was so tired of having to fight historical ways. We've always done it this way. We've never, gosh. And that's fine, if that's what you like. And I said, well, if I could do anything. I hadn't written this down. It just came out of my spirit. I said, I would love to start a church from the ground up in a large metropolitan area. Pretty simple vision statement, if you think about it. And he went, well, where are you going to do that? I'm like, well, you asked. Because he said, well, you know what? It's hard to start a church from the ground up in large metropolitan areas because the property's too expensive. He started telling me all these things I couldn't do. You can't do it this because the property's so expensive. What kind of fund? Where are you going to get the funding? What are you going to? How are you going to afford to live in a large? I'm like, I know, but you asked, and I'm just here to seek your advice. Let me know if you hear of something. That day, we had lunch. We walked back into his office, and he said to his boss, and he said, "Do you have any idea what Fresh Air wants to do?" And they're laughing at him. And they came walking out, and they said, "We think you're stupid for leaving that dream job you've got." And I said, "Yeah, I've heard that a few times." And he said, "He wants to start a church from the ground up in a large metropolitan area." And the guy said, "Hang on just a second." He walked into his office, and he came out. You remember when faxes were always rolled up? When they came out of the fax machine, am I still the only old person that sees that? When they came out, they always rolled up. They weren't flat when they came out. And there was no such thing as an iPhone. So he came walking out with this rolled up piece of paper. And he opened it up. He said, "Have you ever heard of Chevy Chase, D.C.?" I said, "Oh, yeah. I used to live in Annapolis. And Chevy Chase, that's a really wealthy community." He said, "Yeah, they're looking for someone." And it basically read my resume to me. Who wants to start a church from the ground up in a large metropolitan area. This church was about to close. They had suspended their constitution, and they were looking for someone brave enough and dumb enough to take it on. So I called Maureen from our little Jeep ragtop, and she was about to sign a contract with a bunch of nuns from Wheeling, West Virginia for us to buy that property. And I said, "You got to hear about this." So I came home, I showed this to her. She gets all teary, which she doesn't do very often. When she does it, it's like, "Oh my God, this must be serious." And she said, "Call him. Call him." And I said, "What do you mean call him?" She said, "There's his name, Jerry Allen." Jerry Allen was the executive director of Washington, D.C. And I knew protocol. And I said, "Well, I can't just call the executive director of Washington, D.C. And she said, "Just call him. What do you have to lose?" So I called him, and I think it was a Monday. We drove up here on a Wednesday, and we were hired on a Sunday. And that was 22 plus years ago. Because I was willing to seek the counsel and the advice of somebody who had been there. And not somebody who wanted to be there. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Because God is not messing with you. He says, "I have a beautiful, wonderful plan for you. A plan to bless you. A plan to prosper you. A plan to give you good health and joy." And we say, "Well, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing?" And instead of saying, "What would God have me to do?" Because I've got news for you. You are surrounded by the people in your life that have the counsel and the advice. You just need to make sure you choose the right one. Ask more than the comfortable people in your life. Ask people who have done it and succeeded in doing it, and not just want to do it because they're unhappy with where they are. Don't let pride keep you from admitting you don't know. Don't allow it to. We met Lisa Marie. She was a frustrated teenage girl walking down the street, working as an au pair, moved from South Africa. She's here working for an au pair, and she dared to walk into the Bethesda doors. And as she said, she walked in, and she was looking for more. She may not know what she wanted, but she wanted more. I don't want much. I just want more than what I've got. And since then, she's accepted Christ. Maureen baptized her. Maureen married her. I walked her down the aisle. They've gone into ministry together. They've been to Brazil as missionaries. They came back here. They've had babies. And now God has something else for them. Hallelujah. If that bothers you, you care more about you than you do about her. It's important that we have people in our lives who want us to be more than we are. Not judge what we're doing, unless it's wrong, and then speak into that. But you and I have got to understand, In order for us to be on the path God desires us to be on, the most important thing you will ever know is what you don't. Amen? Let's stand together as we close the prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you. I thank you, Father, as I was looking for 1 Corinthians, I came across 1 Chronicles. And someone pointed out to me what I didn't know. I pray, Father, you would help us to seek people in our lives that can help us to reach the path, the destination you've called for us to be on. But the first step in doing that, Father, is to overcome what we don't know and admit it. Father, don't allow ignorance to hold us back. Don't allow pride to hold us back. Don't allow laziness to hold us back. Father, bring people into our lives and help us to seek out people who have been to where we want to go, who have accomplished what we want to accomplish. Help us not to stumble, looking for the path that you've called for us. You're not a God of deceit. You're a God of clarity. You're a God of goodness. And you have a wonderful path for us. May we find people in our lives that we're not afraid to say, I don't know, so that they will give us guidance to get to where we want to be. And never to forget to look back for others so we can bring them along. One of the themes of your ministry on this planet was follow me. Follow me. Take my yoke. Come after me. Father, may we follow you. And may we find people in our lives that can help us to do that better. I pray your blessings over each person who is here. I thank you, Father, for the privilege of being in your house. And I thank you, Lord, that you are not done with us yet. Help us to find your path. And it's in Jesus' precious name we pray. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.